about exploiting weaknesses in the opponent's camp. So we are learning about pawn advances in front of the king. That is, when the opponent becomes really brave and he starts pushing his pawns in front of his own king in order to attack us. And this is what we have learned. When was it? It actually was Monday? I can't remember which day. The other free day of the candidates tournament, we already had a strategy lesson on advanced pawns in front of the castle, in front of the king, actually, in the castle. And today we will continue with this topic. Today we will see some d4 openings, because in the previous session all that we saw were e4 openings, and today we will see a position that arises from a d4 opening, and the player is going to be one of the participants of the candidates tournament. Let me just bring up the board. It's Veselin Topalov. He is not doing a very good tournament in Moscow. He's on -2, you know that, but he's still a very strong player, former world champion. We need to learn from him, definitely. All the players, of course, in the candidates tournament are brilliant, the world's best players. It's a really tough tournament, so just because he's on -2, it doesn't mean that he doesn't know a lot about chess, and his attacking style is just something that really impresses me each time he plays. So we're gonna be with the white pieces, and let's start with d4, g6. We will just run through the opening moves, because this is not an opening show, but we will reach a middle game that we want to discuss. These are all normal moves, and here, look at this move. This isn't that normal, because yes, the center is closed after d5, so black decides to start some kind of an attack on the king side. And yeah, in positions like this you might think that it can be good, but we will see how Topalov punishes these moves. So h5 in itself is not a losing move, but perhaps he should have played, instead of h5, h6, just asking this bishop where it wants to go. So we either retreat with the bishop or we have to capture on f6, and this position is slightly better for a while, but the bishop can go back to g7, the other bishop goes to d7, as you can see from the arrows. So this would have been, I think, what black had to do. Instead he played h5, and of course a drawback of pushing h5 is that now the g5 square is ours. Our bishop on g5 is really cool. No pawn can attack it. It would be only like moving the knight away and then pushing f6, but that means even more weakening moves. So h5 gives up the g5 square, and later we will see white just continues in a normal way. Of course we want to play on the queen side, because that's where, in this position, if you see the e4 and d5 pawn, it's like an arrow pointing at the queen side, and for black it's d6, e5 pointing at the king side. So that's a way of seeing in this kind of closed position where you need to play. So that's very normal. White is playing on the queen side mainly, but soon after g5, if you see that your opponent is really, like, as I said, going so brave, attacking our king by pushing his pawns in front of his own king. So he castled king side and he pushes those pawns. It's not about castling queen side and then attacking on the king side. No, it's about creating or trying to create attack with your pawns when your king is on the same flank. Sometimes it can work, but not all the time, and this position is not the case where it should work. So now this is the first moment when I ask for you to think about the position. What would you do here with white? First of all, of course, you need to decide if this attack on the king side is scary. Are we getting any scared? And then I need a move. How would you continue? How to start exploiting these moves, h5 and g5? Alright, there are many good suggestions in the chat, and of course there's not only one good move in this position. What we will see is that Topalov starts asking the opponent, is it true that you are pushing those pawns? Is it good for you, or are you just weakening your pawns? So in this position he went for the most direct move, questioning those pawns if they are any strong, because after bishop e2 the h5 pawn is hanging. So once you start pushing those pawns, you might end up just losing them because no other pawn is protecting those pawns. Of course, this move provokes g4. That's the only way to keep the h5 pawn. But now, after g4, once again, it's time to decide what do we do about this pawn. Why Topalov wanted to force g4, bishop e2, g4, and now we should make a move once again with white. Alright, let's discuss this because it's not that obvious what's the good move here. I have seen the good moves and also some other suggestions. Let's go one by one. Some of you have said f4. That's a really brave move, but this isn't really the moment for making such moves because f4 also weakens our position. So what do we do after f4 with black? There are many options. For instance, if e takes f4, the good thing for black is that now this square is available for black's pieces. So after bishop takes f4, I don't think immediately, but the plan for black will be to bring a piece here. He can place his knight there. Also, before placing the knight on e5, he can go bishop d4. So there are some squares for black's pieces. It's like like the Benoni. If you know the Benoni opening, there it's very typical to have this e5 square available for black's pieces, also the d4 square. So f4 has its drawbacks. Also after f4, bishop h6 could be a good move for black because it's pinning the bishop. So f4 is a move that black wants to see on the board. Another move that you guys suggested is h4. And it's a good move. So you either choose h4 or you play what Topalov chose. h4, the pros of this move is that we don't have any breakthroughs. So after g4, of course, the main threat of black is to start opening the king side, and he wants to mate us. So if you don't want to get mated, if you don't want to see the g file open up, then it's a good idea to play h4, fix the structure, and just tell the opponent, okay, how do you want to mate me without any open files? Maybe what black will try to do is knight f8, knight g6, attacking this pawn, but it's not that big deal because we can always protect it with g3 and continue our plan on the queen side with knight c4, knight b5. So this is a good move, But what Topalov played is also very instructive, and some of you guys have said this move, which is h takes g4. You might ask, why are we opening the position on the flank where the opponent wants to give mate? So yeah, black is trying to attack on the king side, and yes, we are opening the h file. But what Topalov saw is that maybe it's not only about the white king, maybe the black king can be weak as well. And that's what he will explode very soon. So here, first of all, he made the most natural move, knight c4, threatening knight b5, because it's not only about this king side. The g4 pawn can be vulnerable, then the king, the black king, can be vulnerable, but also let's not forget about the d6 pawn. That's a weakness, that's a weak link in black's pawn structure. So just because there have been pawn pushes on the king side, it doesn't mean that we stop thinking about the queen side. Knight c4, that's a very nice square for the knight. Look at this knight, and the other knight is heading to b5, attacking the d6 pawn. So black has to either play a6, but a6 weakens the b6 square, so after a6 we could just push a5 and then jumping to b6 with the knight. This is what we saw in the previous session, having a knight there on b6. This is such a hole in black's position, and if he has to defend in a way like knight d7, that means that he will never manage to develop his pieces. So a6 is not a really good move. Black played queen d8, just going away from the knight b5 maneuver. It's still possible to play for knight b5, but not immediately. You have to pay attention to this guy. The e4 pawn can be hanging too. But what Topalov did in this position, instead of trying to prepare knight b5 and attacking on the queen side, he decided that he opened the h file for a reason. And that reason is that he wants to attack himself. He wants to build up an attack on the h file. So how can you imagine bringing your heavy pieces to the h file? Why did he play h takes g4? How can we go to the h file with our heavy pieces? You guys are very quick. Of course, it is g3, and the plan is, as funny as it may seem, king g2, rook h1, and then rook h4, bringing the queen as well to the h file, or queen d2, bringing the other rook to the h file. The point is that after g3, king g2, it is white who will start attacking on the king side. And it's quite funny because black started pushing those pawns in order to attack us, but what he has achieved by these pawn pushes is that, first of all, this g4 pawn is vulnerable, so he cannot really go for b6, bishop b7, because that would leave the g4 pawn without enough protection. So he has to keep an eye on that pawn, and at the same time, because of this h takes g4, the h file has opened, and it is white who can take advantage of this, the open h file. Just try to see how black could double his rooks on the h file. I mean, even bringing one rook to the h file is difficult for black. What can you do? Like, I would try to make something ridiculous, you know, just, no, bishop h8, and how do you? I mean, bishop f8, and maybe then bishop e7, king g7, rook h8. Maybe that's the way to bring the rook to the h file, but it's just a joke, because once you have the king on g7, white can just simply play queen d2, bishop h6, or if the rook is already on h1, then the same thing, bishop h6 check, and it is us. It is white who is attacking, it's not black. So this position is already almost winning for white, because all we did was to let the opponent push those pawns. We didn't care. He pushed g5, and after g5, Topalov even provokes the opponent to push those pawns further. Bishop e2, attacking the h5 pawn. So it's either that black loses this pawn, or he should go h4, but after h4 he cannot push those pawns any further, so knight c4, and we continue with our plan. Or if he insists on attacking on the king side and pushes g4, then after h takes, and g3, bringing the king to g2, then rook h1, it is us, it is white who is attacking. So that was Topalov's plan, and I think that's really instructive. So instead of being afraid of the opponent's plan, he just thought, okay, this g5, g4 push is only weakening your own position. That's what he was telling his opponent with his look, I think. Let's see what happened in the game. Here, I think black should have tried to develop his pieces with b6, but as I said, you can never really go bishop b7. You have to go first queen d7 to protect the pawn, and then bishop b7. But anyway, this position is really nice for white. We already have the h file. You can go then rook h4, queen h1, or queen d2, rook h1. Many nice moves here for white. Instead, what black did was actually stepping into white's attack, bringing the king to the h file. I should add that this game is from a simul. I already told you that I like seeing simul games by top players because they are very instructive. It's when the opponent makes mistakes and you learn a lot from how these top players exploit those mistakes. So yes, king h8 is a bad move, I know. But we will see how Topalov continues. Of course, he goes for king g2 and he's preparing rook h1. So simple, isn't it? Rook g8 is also not something that's helping black, but he still insists on playing on the king side. So rook h1, there we are, we have arrived where we wanted. And after bishop f8, it's time to think again how to place the rest of the pieces. So we would like to know where to place the queen and the other rook and how to organize all those three pieces, whether we should triple them on the h file or we can go queen d2 and then rook h4, rook h1. Actually both are good, so I will not even bring up the time to think image, because no matter which you choose, whether rook h4 with the idea of bringing the queen to h1, then queen h2, then rook h1. Okay, maybe the queen on h2 is not that active, but if we are threatening to capture on h7, that's quite a big threat. The other way is what Topalov did, and maybe that's more natural, playing queen d2 and then doubling the rooks on the h file. So the queen is nice on d2, we have this diagonal, we can go bishop h6 at some point, and we just want to double the rooks on the h file. So after rook g6, either rook h4 or what Topalov did, rook h2, bishop e7, rook a h1, and here after queen g8, there are so many good moves in this position already. Imagine that even moves like bishop takes c5 works, because this d pawn starts running, and after this position, knight takes, rook moves away, d7 wins back the piece. I just wanted to show that this is, for instance, a beautiful variation, but you don't even have to sacrifice if you don't want to. What Topalov did was just playing bishop d3, protecting the e4 pawn, preparing knight b5, because it's true that we have just doubled the rooks on the h file, but it's not so easy to attack black's king. You see that there are many pieces here, the queen, the knight, rook, this bishop can go back. So black's king, even though it's on an open file, is quite protected at the moment. We need a second weakness, a second target to attack, and that's why white is preparing knight b5, because don't forget about the d6 pawn, it's still a weak pawn. So we are attacking on the king side, and at the same time we continue going against the d6 pawn, because imagine if black has to defend on both flanks, preparing against knight b5, protecting his king on the other flank. That's just impossible to protect everything, to defend on both the queen side and the king side. That's why after doubling the rooks on the h file, Topalov now keeps his attack going also on the queen side, preparing knight b5. Bishop d7 and knight b5. So even if bishop takes, a takes, that means that the a file has been opened. At some point we can just go back to the a file, because we can play on both flanks. Actually, this is the position where white has advantage on both flanks, and also in the center we have more space. So this position, ooh, that arrow is like what Pepe usually draws. We have a beautiful knight, very nice rooks, all the other pieces. The only piece that I don't like that much is the d3 bishop, but it's protecting an important pawn, so it's also good. Anyway, this position is very good. What happened in the game was knight b5, queen b8, and now it is time to think, because we have forced the opponent's queen to protect this pawn. So it left the king side. After having achieved this and focusing on this, the queen has left the black king. Maybe it's a good moment to attack once again on the king side, and if it's so, how to do it? How can we threaten on the king side once again? What to play here? You guys are so quick. Yes, bishop g5, and after bishop g5 we are simply threatening to take the knight on f6 and then win a piece by rook takes h7, and also the queen after rook h8, so everything, the position would collapse if in this position it's white to move, bishop takes f6, and you have to resign with black. So what black did was moving away from the pin, but now once again we have a very strong move, so calculate and tell me what to play here with white. That was really quick once again. Rook takes h7 check. You have to take with the knight, and then this bishop on e7 falls. So we have two minor pieces for the rook and a lot of attack. But black doesn't even have any pawns, so it should be a rook and a pawn that normally compensates for two minor pieces. So we already have material up, and at the same time this d6 pawn is not green, it's a red one. It's such a weak pawn on d6, so we are attacking the d6 pawn, and the black king is still suffering on the king side. So rook takes h7 is a really good move, and of course that's what Topalov played. Now the d6 pawn, it's just impossible to bring another piece for black to defend it. That's why he captured finally on b5, but after a takes, as I said, sometimes even this a file can be used for white, not at the moment because we like our rook on h1, but it's just good to know that we also have the a file. Queen c7, and here once again there are sacrifices like bishop takes, rook takes, knight e5, and then we also get the g4 pawn, but there was no need to sacrifice on exchange when you have good moves like bishop h4. So simple, just bringing back the bishop, and we are material up, and also our position is better. After rook h8, actually here I think you would shout what to play with white. Topalov played first c3. Then I will tell you the move. I mean, here in the next position is where he played the move I would have wanted to play. I would have wanted to play in this moment, because anyway the idea is the same, so it doesn't matter if here or on the next move. But you need to find how to progress in this position with white. You need to find a hole in black's position, and I'm sure that after so many strategy shows, you know where a weak square is, where is an outpost for our piece, and which piece it is. All of you are brilliant strategy students. Yes, the f5 square is such a hole in black's position. Let's just make it red. Imagine a knight there, and it's so easy to bring our knight there. We don't need any sophisticated maneuver. No, it's just 2 moves away. Knight e3 heading to f5, and once we have the knight on f5, that's gonna be a monster. And we love to have such strong pieces, so knight e3 is the best move. Also, I thought in the previous position, that's why I was saying that here already knight e3 would have been a really good move. What am I doing with all these arrows? But anyway, the idea is the same, so a move later. Still, it's a really good move. You cannot do anything against knight f5, and it's not winning the game immediately, but if we just improve the position step by step, move by move. First, we managed to double the rooks on the h5, now we are heading to f5 with the knight. We always have a goal and then we achieve it. So those are milestones that you want to achieve, and this is the way to progress in the game. So we have an idea, we carry it out, and then we keep on improving the pieces. So now let's get to f5 with the knight and then see what happens next. Bishop e2 attacking the pawn first, because we can jump to f5 anytime. And after king f8 here already, bishop takes g7, bishop takes g4 was a good move. Instead, Topalov decided that, okay, let's open more the queen side. So bishop g4 would have just captured the pawn, really good move. b4 is also a nice move, of course. b6, b takes, and after knight f5, he's not in a rush with this capture on g4. So he just goes knight f5 because he wants to have this beautiful knight. He prefers, instead of grabbing pawns, he just wants to have very good pieces. This knight on f5 is so annoying. It's a beast, as I said, and once again it's attacking this d6 pawn. That's another vulnerable spot in black's camp. Let's not forget about that. So after king f7, he went for the other flank, because yes, the black king is our target, but you see this rook on aj, the other rook on g6, this knight on h7, so there are many black pieces on the king side. But what is on the queen side? Look at black's queen side. There's only a queen on the queen side, nothing else, no defenders. So yeah, very logical move, rook a1. And there are so many weaknesses. The a7 pawn, the d6 pawn, the king is weak, and also the g4 pawn can be hanging in many positions. So now Topalov brings back his rook to the a file. He has opened the a file for a reason, and now, as I said, rook a6, just to attack those pawns, the weak pawns, and also to get access to the king, because on the king side there were so many pieces, many defenders, but now the queen side is empty. We can attack on the queen side. Rook b8, and here many good moves. He chose c4 just to avoid even this exchange sacrifice on b5. It was not necessary, but Topalov just avoids any kind of active move by black. And after knight g5, bishop takes g4, actually his opponent resigned, because I mean, even if he doesn't give up the pawn, what do you do here with black? The threat is very simple. We wanna go, I am drawing with yellow. That's a green move. I'm painting all the board with colors. So rook a6, for instance, also queen a2, attacking this pawn, many moves. This pawn is also vulnerable, even queen d1 to capture this pawn. All the pawns are weak in black's camp. His material done already, because we have 2 minor pieces for the rook, and we threaten rook a6, queen a2, queen d1 to capture on g4, and after knight g5, bishop g4, they are even discovered attacks just to win the queen, for instance. Way too many threats, that's why the opponent resigned. But actually what we have to learn from this game is not the end of the game, because here in this kind of position there are already many good moves. What you had to see is that the knight has a nice outpost on f5, and see how to get the knight there. But I think the important thing to learn from this game is that, first of all, don't get scared if the opponent starts pushing his pawns in front of his king just to attack us. Yes, there are some threats, but once you are calm and you think about the position objectively, you will realize that we are not getting mated. Maybe it will be black who gets mated. Bishop e2 provoking the push of these pawns, either h4 and then there are no more breakthroughs, or g4, which happened in the game, and this is what Topalov wanted. He wanted to open the h file and play g3, king g2, rook h1, and attack black's king. So he ended up attacking on both flanks. This is because the center is closed here, so there was nothing going on in the center. Of course, you shouldn't go this brave, pushing the pawns in front of your king when the center is open. So that's a different story, but that's with mostly e4 openings. With d4 openings, many times you have a closed center, and flank attacks are very usual. What we will do now is, once again, I will copy the link to the thematic tournament because we are beginning in 8 minutes. The position, I can already tell you, will be a position from today's lesson, which is the Topalov game. So when you are white, you will have to try to remember what we learned from Topalov's game and play in a similar way. Of course, this is not about memorizing the moves and you have to play the exact same way. Just remember the ideas. Remember what Topalov was playing for, what maneuvers, what ideas. That's the only thing you need to do. I don't want you to memorize the moves. I want you to remember the ideas. And with black, try to survive. This is an unrated tournament. Nobody's going to lose rating just by practicing. So we will practice this position a few moves before the disaster began, but already with the advanced pawns. So the position will be this position from the Topalov game. When you are black, try to improve black's play because black didn't really play well in this game. Yes, the pawns are already advanced. This is what we are practicing today to exploit. This pushes the against in front of your own king. So yes, white has an advantage in the starting position in today's thematic tournament. But please, with black, try to be creative. Try to improve black's play. It's not like a lost position. You are worse, but you can. In many games, we are worse. So I think it's also good to practice how to try to create something when we have an inferior position. You're not material down, so that's okay. And try to be creative. You're not going to lose any rating. As I said, this is an unrated tournament. The point is to practice what we have learned today. So in many games, you will be white and you can play the same ideas that Topalov has applied. And when you are black, just try to improve black's play. We are beginning in 6 minutes and I will check who are the players already signed up for the event. Actually, I will open the website too here. Let me just show you. I hope I can. Okay, first of all, I go to chess24. Yeah, let me show you. Let's go to chess24. Here we are and we're gonna click on this one because this is the show you are watching right now. Oh, I'm covering it with my big head. So let me scroll down. Okay, what I'm talking about is that you see here, there's this, I'm still covering it. Anyway, this says Miss Strategy's Middlegame Show. That's the one you are watching. And this one here, the blue icon, is Miss Strategy Exploiting Weaknesses. I'm clicking on it and I open the tournaments page. And we have here, the first one is Miss Strategy Exploiting Weaknesses Thematic Tournament. So that's the one you should sign up for. I see that there are already 12 players signed up, but you need to sign up before then 4 o'clock. That means you only have 5 minutes left before we begin. Make sure you sign up. I've just copied the link to the chat. I think I managed. Let me just check. I will double check if it's there. And yep, I think we have the link. I'm still waiting for you guys to sign up. 13 players now. I will see who is already there on the list. 14. Just keep on signing up. You need to sign up now because once we reach, actually we have 4 minutes and 22 seconds left. So once the time's up, it's gonna be just too late to join the event. Sign up because we're gonna practice what we have learned from today's Topalov game, and at the same time I'll be commentating on your game. So I will be looking at your games, analyzing what you do well and what you can improve. I think it's a very nice feature on Chess24 for premium members that we are personally coaching you, we are analyzing your games. Sign up for the event, 15 players now. I will see who is here. So we have Iber, Sphinx 1991, Mate Cox, Schachmaster GT, Board Keeper, Mikhail Ovsepian, John 25, Night Killer 000, Arrivato Zampano, Vusso, then we have Rocker, Muchacha, Hanging Piece, Word 20, Fernando Fuentes, DXB Chess. 16 participants so far. I see many names that I have already read out, so I'm very glad, guys, that you return always to the thematic tournaments. I feel like you are my regular students, but of course I'm also happy to see new names. So we have some new participants too, not always the same people playing these events. I'm really glad that we have a community here that's growing each time. So I think the first shows, I don't know the numbers exactly, but the first shows, some of you were already here, but by each session I think we've had more students. I'm really glad that this show is popular. I'm glad that you like learning from me and learning about strategy. So keep coming to the shows and to the thematic tournament. I really like teaching you guys, and I like having you here among my pupils. There's only 2 minutes and 38 seconds left. You can still click on this tournament button, sign up for the event. 19 players so far, and the link is still here in the chat, so I will not need to copy it again. I'm looking forward to seeing your games, because you know that these days I've been commentating on the candidates tournament, so I've been commentating on the games of the best players in the world. But today I have a new challenge. I need to commentate on your games. So that's very different from the candidates tournament, but at the same time I love this challenge because I think this is when I really need to give the most instructive advice possible. So I will try to see mistakes also in your games. Also, of course, I will emphasize when you do something very well. I like to see when you carry out these ideas that we have learned. But also, at the same time, I will try to give you advice on what can you improve. And when I see, of course, the games of Karyakin, Caruana, Nishgiri, Peter Swidler, and all the Aroni and rest of the candidates tournament players, I'm not giving them advice. So this is very different from commentating the candidates tournament. I'm not trying to give advice to top players. I'm just trying to learn from their games. But today, what I will do is try to give you advice so that you can improve your chess. I hope that I can be here helpful to you. I'm trying to be as instructive as possible. 1 minute and 16 seconds left. So who else will sign up? We have 21 participants so far, and the rating average is 1638. But I can see 21 players from so many different countries. Some of the flags I don't even know. I think I should start learning flags so that I can read out the countries as well. Okay, I think if I go on the icons, for instance, of course, John 25, I know that he's from Spain. I live in Spain, I can recognize the Spanish flag. But for instance, let me see. Fernando Fuentes, I think, yeah, we have the chess from the United Arab Emirates, and we have Fernando Fuentes from Chile. Then Spain, we have Denmark, England, I mean the United Kingdom to be more exact, United States, France, Spain, Russia, Germany, United States, Germany, Spain, more Spain, and Sphinx from the Netherlands, like so many different countries. I really like that we have this international community here on Chess24, but I should stop speaking because it's gonna be 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and the tournament begins.